Morning class. Today we're going to discuss division of polynomials. Okay, specifically we're going to discuss dividing a polynomial by a binomial. Dividing a polynomial by a monomial is a lot easier. Let me start with the harder one. Dividing a polynomial by a binomial. A binomial. Here's an example. 5x to the third plus, let me say squared. Okay. 5x squared. Make it easier. 5x squared plus 2x minus 9 divided by x plus 2. Okay, so we're going to do long division. So we're dividing polynomials. Okay, so we're going to use long division. Long division. Okay. First thing we need to do is do it this way. 5x squared plus 2x minus 9 divided by x plus 2. And the best way that I can explain this is the following way. Okay, so let me go and give you an easier example. Here's an easy example. Let's take 975 divided by 4. Okay? Let's look at this example. What we learned from this example, we're going to apply it here. Okay? So, to divide this, we also use long division. So let's take 975 divided by 4. Note, the first step is we see if this 4 goes into the 9. Now everybody knows that 4 does not go into the 9 because there's a remainder. So therefore, we only approximate the number of times 4 goes into the 9. So step number 1 is approximate. 4 goes into the 9 approximately twice. Okay? Note, we start with the 9. To do the division, we say 4 goes into the first digit. Okay? And that's an approximation. 4 goes into 9 approximately twice. Step number 1 in long division. This is long division. Is approximate. So 4 goes into the 9 approximately twice. And then step number 2, we multiply. The first step is we say 4 goes into the 9 approximately twice. Step number 1. Step number 2, we multiply the approximation times the denominator. That 4 is the denominator, look. So we multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. That's your step number 2. Step number 3, subtract. Step number 3, we subtract. So I'll do it this way. I'll subtract, put it in red, subtract, right there. 9 minus 8 is 1. That's step number 3. Step number 4, bring down. Bring down the next digit. 7. Bring it down. What's the next step? Go back to step number 1. Back to step number 1. Approximate again. 4 into 17, approximately 4 times. Multiply. Step number 2. 4 times 4, 16. And then step number 3, subtract. Subtract, right there. That's subtraction. I do it in red. 17 minus 16 is 1. Step number 4, bring down. And then back to step number 1 again, approximate again. Approximate. 4 into 15, 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Multiply. Next is subtract. Put a negative right there. And do the subtraction. And this is 3. 15 minus 12 is 3. Since we're not worried about decimals, this must be the remainder. So therefore, that's our remainder. The answer is 243 plus the remainder, which is 3, over the denominator, which is 4. And we have divided. There we go. Okay. Well, we're going to use exactly this in this problem. Okay? We're going to use that in this problem. Your step number 1, we're going to use long division. Your step number 1 is approximate. Note, we set the 4 into the first digit. 4 into the first digit, which means we're going to take the first term. X into the first term. Actually, x plus 2 into the first term. Just like we worry about the first digit here, we're going to worry about the first term there. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. Our first step is to take this first term divided by x plus 2, just like we took the 9 divided by 4. So I'm trying to find the room. So I'm going to approximate. Watch this. I'm going to take the 5x squared. I'm approximating, okay? Got to do it here. Approximate. I'm going to take this 5x squared divided by x plus 2. Okay. That can't be done because of this 2. No problem. Since we're only approximating, I'm going to drop the 2. Okay, I'm going to drop this 2 because we're only approximating. So let's drop the 2. Drop this 2. And now we can do this. Remember, we're only approximating, so we can do that. We drop the 2. So now this becomes 5x squared divided by x. 5x. And that's our approximation. So this is 5x. That's your step number 1. Step number 2, multiply. Look. So multiply the 5x times x and multiply the 5x times 2. What's 5x times x? 5x squared. What's 5x times 2? Plus 10x. Note, I line them up. And what's your step number 3? Subtract. Okay, so note, here I use red to subtract. Here I'm gonna use also red to subtract. Because I am subtracting a binomial, gotta do this. If you don't do that, it's gonna be wrong. Subtract. When we subtract, this 5x squared becomes negative, look. And so 5x squared minus 5x squared is 0. You want that to happen. You see this 10x, it becomes negative, look. So this becomes 2x minus 10x. What's 2x minus 10x? Negative 8x. That's your step number 3. Step number 4, bring down. Minus the 9. Bring down. There it is. And then what's next? Approximate again. Note, to approximate, just take this term divided by, you could drop the 2, divided by x. You're approximating. Remember, you take this negative 8x divided by x plus 2. But since you're only approximating, you can drop the 2. And so now we say, what is negative 8x divided by x? The x cancels. We get negative 8. Okay, so that's negative 8. That's your approximation. Now we're going to multiply. Multiply. Step number 2. Negative 8 times x. Negative 8x. Negative 8 times 2. Negative 16. That's your step number 2. Step number 3, subtract. Gotta use this. Gotta subtract all of it. Put a negative in front. You better use parentheses. A negative times a negative is positive. So this negative 8x becomes positive 8x. So this negative 8x plus 8x, 0. This negative 16 becomes positive. So what's negative 9 plus 16? What's negative 9 plus 16? 7. And that's gotta be your remainder. Why? Because the degree for this number is 0. And the degree for this number is 1. Whenever this answer has a smaller degree than the denominator, you're done. That must be the remainder. Okay? So therefore, we got it. So this equals to what? 5x minus 8 plus what? The 7 over x plus 2. There you go. Okay. This is called long division. Let's do another one. Let's do one more. This is long division. These are the 4 steps that we follow. Okay? Gotta erase them because I don't have the room. So I'm gonna erase this. Okay, this is long division. You guys know the steps. And we're going to do another one. Okay, so let's do one more. Let's take this one. Let's take 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 11 divided by x plus 3. Okay. Let's do it with long division. Long division. Okay. All right. First step is approximate. So first step is, this is my numerator. So we take this, look, 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 11 divided by x plus 3. And the first step we said is approximate. And we said for the approximation, we said we take the first term divided by x plus 3, but for the approximation we said we can drop the 3. Okay. Okay. So look, we're going to approximate this. Look, 2x cubed divided by x plus 3, but for the approximation, this means approximate right there. Let's just drop the 3. We're going to drop the 3. So this is 2x cubed divided by x. All right, just drop the 3 for the approximation. So therefore, we can't divide this because of the 3, but if you drop it, you can. So what's 2x cubed divided by x? Isn't that 2x squared? This is 2x squared. So therefore, that's our approximation. That's your step number 1. Step number 2 is you multiply 2x squared times x. 2x cubed, we got the same thing as this term, and you want that to happen, okay? If that doesn't happen, you're making a mistake. And now 2x squared times 3 is what? Plus 6x squared. That's your step number 2, multiply. Step number 3, subtract. So this is the way I do it. Subtract right there. I put a negative in front and I use parentheses. Okay, subtract. Okay, let me make sure that the camera's rolling, okay? All right, it is rolling. So now this becomes negative, you get 0. And this becomes negative, look, this negative times this positive is negative. And negative 3x squared minus 6x squared is what? Negative 9x squared. Now bring down the 4. Plus 4x. Now go back to approximating again. Take this number, take this term, divided by the x, drop the 3. So take negative 9x squared divided by this x only, and drop this 3. And what's negative 9x squared divided by this x? Negative 9x. So this is negative 9x. So that's your approximation. The next step is to multiply. What's negative 9x times x? Negative 9x squared. What's negative 9x times 3? negative 27x. Yep. What's the next step? Subtract. That's the next step. Subtract. Here we go. This negative times this negative makes it positive. When you add, you get 0. This negative times this negative makes it positive. When you add, what do you get? 31x. Bring down, minus 11. Now what? Do it again. What's 31x divided by x? The x cancels, look. 31x divided by x is plus 31. What's 31 times x? 31x. What's 31 times 3? Is that 93? 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. What's the next step? Subtract. That's the next step. This is long division. This becomes negative, you get 0. And this becomes what? Negative 93. What's negative 93 plus negative 11? Negative 104. That must be the remainder, because the degree for this is 0, whereas the degree for this is 1. When the degree is less than that, you're done. That must be the remainder. So what's the answer? The answer is 2x squared minus 9x plus 31 minus 104 divided by x plus 3. This is long division, guys. Okay, long division. All right, okay. We can do the same problems with synthetic division. Okay? Synthetic division. Okay? Long division, that's what we just did. Consider the following. I gotta erase it. Sorry. Okay. I'm gonna do this problem with synthetic division. We just did it with long division. Now synthetic division. For synthetic division, we better get the same answer. Okay? For synthetic division, here's what we do. We take the coefficients of the numerator. Take the coefficients. Coefficients. This 5 is a coefficient. This 2 is a coefficient. This negative 9 is a coefficient. Okay? We take the coefficients. We write them there. If there are missing terms, each missing term has a coefficient of 0. Okay? So, but let's do this one. Coefficient 5. Coefficient 2. coefficient -9. Those are the coefficients. And we take the opposite of this 2. Opposite. Whatever this number is, we take the opposite. Okay? -2. The first step number 1 is bring down. So bring down the 5. Multiply. -2 times 5 is -10. Add those two. 2 plus -10 is -8. Multiply. -2 times -8, 16. Add. -9 plus 16, 7. Note, guys, you see this 5? This 5 corresponds to this 5x. You see this -8? This -8 corresponds to this constant term. So this 5 corresponds to the linear answer. Yes, right here, this 5x. This -8 corresponds to this constant answer. Yes, -8. And this must be what? This is the remainder, look, over x plus 2. So that's our answer. By looking at this, I can tell you right away that the answer is 5x minus 8 plus 7 over x plus 2. Same thing. Hey, let's do this one with synthetic division. Synthetic division, guys. Okay, we can do that. Let's take the coefficients. Take 2, -3, 4, and -11. Okay, so take 2, -3, 4, and -11. Those are the coefficients of the numerator. And take the opposite. Always take the opposite. Here we took -2, look. And here I'm going to take -3. Okay? And the first step is to bring down. This first coefficient comes down. The next step is to multiply. -3 times 2, -6. The next step is to add. What is that? -9. The next step is to multiply. -3 times -9, 27. Okay. The next step is to add. 27 plus 4, 31. The next step is to multiply. A negative times a positive is negative. 3 times 1 is 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. And it's negative. The next step is to add. That's a 4. And that's a 10. And it's negative. You see this? That's the answer. That's part of the answer now. Since we divided by x plus 3, we divided 2x cubed. We divided 2x cubed divided by this x plus 3. This, we divided x cubed by x. That's x squared. So this corresponds to x squared. So the answer is 2x squared minus 9x plus 31 minus 104 divided by, what is it? X plus 3. Same as this, okay? That's long division, and we did it earlier with synthetic division, okay? All right, so I have to move on into another problem. Now, if there are missing terms, no problem, guys. If there are missing terms, we write, if we want to do it with synthetic division, we have to write zeros for the missing terms. Let me give you an example. Watch the following. Now, you use these concepts when dividing by a binomial or more. Okay, if you use long division, that's more powerful than synthetic division. Okay, we use this when dividing by a binomial or more. If you have to divide by a monomial, do not use long division or synthetic division. Okay, that's a lot easier. Dividing by a monomial is a lot easier than this, okay? If you use either synthetic division or long division, you're making things hard for yourself. And I'll give you an example before we finish this. So watch this. X cubed plus 27 divided by x plus 3. Okay? We're going to use long division, actually synthetic division, for this. In both cases, you have to write down zeros for the missing terms. Okay? If you use long division, you have to write zeros for the missing term. For example, watch this. Here we have x squared missing and x missing. So if you do it with long division, you write it like this, look. X cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x plus 27 divided by x plus 3. This is long division. And then you go through the process. Okay? If you do with synthetic division, you also write the missing terms. See, this is long division. If you do with synthetic division, you write the missing terms. What are the missing terms? That's a missing term and that's a missing term. For this term, I'm going to write a 1. For this term, I'm going to write a 0. For this term, I'm going to write a 0. For this term, I'm going to write a 27. And this is synthetic division. And what do I write out here? The opposite of that. A negative 3. What's the first step in synthetic division? Bring down a 1. Next step, multiply a negative 3. Next step, add a negative 3. Next step, multiply a 9. Next step, add a 9. So first step is bring down and then multiply to get this. Add and then multiply negative 3 times negative 3 to get that. Add and then multiply negative 3 times 9 to get negative 27. And then add and you get 0. And this last one is the remainder. That's the remainder. There you go. And what's the answer to this? What's the answer to this? Look, you're dividing x squared, x cubed divided by x. You take the bigger you take the degree. X cubed divided by x by the quotient rule, that's x cubed minus 1. There's a 1 there. And you get x squared. And that corresponds to this number. So the answer is x squared minus 3x plus 9 plus remainder of 0. You don't have to write it. Whenever the remainder is 0, you don't have to write it. And you're done. That's the answer. Right here. Look. Okay. If you want to do it the other way, you can. By the way, do you guys remember how to factor this top? How do you factor the top? Factor numerator. Watch this. The top is a binomial times a trinomial. Because this is a sum, the first one is a sum. Because this is a sum, the first one is a difference, the last one is always a sum. To get this first term, you ask what's being cubed, which is x. To get this second term in the binomial, you ask what's being cubed, which is 3. To get this one, you square that. To get that one, you square this. To get the middle term, you multiply. Divided by x plus 3. Look, those two cancel. And you get x squared minus 3x plus 9, x squared minus 3x plus 9. So what did we learn from this? We just learned that whenever the remainder is 0, the denominator is a factor of the numerator. Do you see it? Let me say it again. If you ever do even long division, if you do long division or synthetic division, and the remainder is 0, that means that the denominator is a factor of the numerator. Look here. Here we had remainder of 0, and that meant that this denominator is also a factor in the numerator. Look. Okay? All right. Let's not forget that. Once again, whenever the remainder is 0, then we say that the denominator is a factor of the numerator. Yep. And that's important to understand, because watch this. Consider the following. Okay? Consider this. Once again, if the remainder is 0, whenever we do division, either long division or synthetic division, when we're dividing by a binomial, if we ever get remainder of 0, that means that the binomial factor in the denominator, this binomial in the denominator, is a factor in the numerator. We can do it again. Watch this. Watch this. Let's do another one. And that's going to be a rule. So I'm going to make up one. Watch this. X squared minus x minus 6 divided by x minus 3. Okay. Look, if we factor the numerator, let's factor the numerator. Okay? Let us factor the numerator. Factoring the numerator. Watch this. X times x, 2 times 3, plus and minus. That'll work. X times x is x squared. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Inner is 2x. Outer is negative 3x. 2x minus 3x is negative x. Got it. We got the top. Look at the bottom. X minus 3. They cancel. Our answer is x plus 2. Wow. Okay. Because this denominator is also a factor in the numerator, note, because this denominator is also a factor in the numerator, I bet you if we do either synthetic division or long division, we are gonna get a remainder of 0. Guaranteed. How do I know that? Because look, this denominator is a factor in the numerator. They cancel. And that's our answer. Let's do this problem with synthetic division, and I'm going to show you that we're going to get a remainder of 0. Watch this. Synthetic division. How do you do synthetic division? Take a 1 there, take a negative 1 there, and take a negative 6 there. And what about here? Take the opposite, a 3. And what's the first step? Bring down. Second step, multiply. 3 times 1 is 3. Next step, add a 2. Next, multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Add 0. We knew that. We knew that already. How did we know that? That a remainder was going to be 0. Because we found out that this binomial is a factor in the numerator. So once again, guys, here's the point. Whenever the remainder is 0, what does that mean? It means that the denominator is a factor in the numerator. The answer here is, look, this corresponds to x plus 2 with remainder of 0. And that's the answer, look. Okay. So we're not going to forget that. We are not going to forget that, okay? Okay. All right. Need to move on. Erase. Beautiful. Okay. So now, how can we use these concepts? Hey, we can use these concepts in the following way. Watch this. Watch this. F of x equals to four x cubed minus x squared plus 4x plus 2. Okay. And here's a question. The question is, is that's an is, okay, is x plus 2 a factor of f of x? That's the question. Okay. Well, let's find out. X plus 2 is a factor of f of x if, when we do synthetic division, we get remainder of 0. Yeah. From the prior concepts. So, if 4x cubed minus x squared plus 4x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 produces remainder of 0, then x plus 2 is a factor of f of x. Yeah. Question, is x plus 2 a factor of f of x? Well, if you do this division and it produces a remainder of 0, this is 0, of 0, then x plus 2 is a factor of f of x. Let's see. Let's divide. How do we divide? Well, you can use long division or synthetic division. Let's use synthetic division, okay? Synthetic division. Okay. How do you do synthetic division? Coefficient 4. Coefficient -1. Coefficient 4. Coefficient 2. What goes here? The opposite. -2. What's the first step? Bring it down. The Next, multiply. Negative 2 times 4, negative 8. Next step, add. Negative 9. Negative 2 times negative 9, 18. Add. And what do we get? Add. Let me do it again. So 4 brings down, multiply, negative 8. Add, negative 9. Multiply 18. Add 22. Multiply, what is it? Multiply, negative 44. Add, negative 42. So the question is x plus 2 a factor of f of x? The answer is no. No. Why? Because remainder is not 0. Instead, remainder is negative 42. So the answer is no. This is not a factor. This is not a factor of x plus 2 is not a factor of this function. Okay. All right. Let's do another one. Let's do one more. Let me erase this, okay? Let me erase this. Okay. All right. Watch the following. Here's another one. We're going to do another one. F of x. F of x equals to 2x cubed minus 4x squared minus 10x plus 12. Okay. And my question is, is x minus 3 a factor of f of x? Well, let's find out. How do we find out? Let's do this. Let's do 2x cubed minus 4x squared minus 10x plus 12 divided by x minus 3. If this produces a remainder of 0, then f of x is, then x minus 3 is a factor of f of x. Okay? Once again, if this produces a remainder of 0, this is f of x divided by x minus 3. Okay? If this produces a remainder of 0, then x minus 3 is a factor of f of x. The answer is yes. If it does not produce a remainder of 0, then it is not. Let's find out. A 2, a negative 4, a negative 10, a 12. And take the opposite, a 3. First step, bring down a 2. Multiply a 6. Add a 2. Multiply a 6. Add a negative 4. Multiply, negative 12. Add a 0. Yes! The answer is yes. Because we got a remainder of 0. Yes. It is a factor. X minus 3 is a factor of f of x. Yes. X minus 3 is a factor of f of x. Hey, watch this. This is beautiful. Because x minus 3 is a factor of f of x, then we can write it the following way. Then f of x equals to x minus 3 times what? Times what? 2x squared plus 2x minus 4. Notice I'm using the answer. Yes, I am. And look at that. So we have factor f of x. Yes, yes. And we can factor this even further. Let's try factoring this. So, you see this 2? I'm going to take out a 2. A 2 is going to be taken out, and I'm going to put it out here, okay? A 2 comes out, and then we have an x minus 3. And then if you took out a 2 from there, what do you get? X squared. If you took factor out a 2 from there, what do you get? Plus x. If you took out a 2 from there, what do you get? Minus 2. Yes, look. We took out a 2. Wait a minute, we can still factor this further. And this equals to 2 times x minus 3 times. Can we factor this? That's first. That's x times x. What is this? That's 1 times 2. Make this plus and make this minus. And let's check. X times x is x squared. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Outer. Multiply, yes. This is inner. And this is, let's see, first, outer, inner, and then last. So outer is 2x minus x, which is x. Got it. Guys, this is f of x, look. Yes, right there. Nice. And guess what? Wait a minute. Okay, so I have to erase this, okay? Watch what happens, guys, with what we just found out. Watch what happens. Watch what happens when we employ these concepts. Now that we have factored this, you can find all the zeros. The zeros are the x-intercepts, otherwise called zeros. Or x-intercepts. Look, how do you find all the zeros? Well, you set this equal to 0. 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 1 times x plus 2 equals to 0. These are all the x-intercepts. The only way this is 0 is if x equals 3. Or x equals 1 from that one. Or x equals negative 2. Look at that. So wait a minute. Synthetic division helps us find factors. And once we find factors, that helps us graph. Because now, these are zeros. A 3 is a 0. So this factor gave me a 0, an x-intercept, which is also called a 0 of 3. This factor gave me a 0 of 1. This factor gave me a 0 of negative 2. Watch this. This is x. This is f of x. Let's find all the zeros. There's a 0 at 3. There's a 0 at 1. And there's a 0 at negative 2. There's a 0 at 1, 2, and 3. There's a 0 at 1. And there's a 0 at negative 2. Look. So each factor gave me a 0. So it is convenient to be able to factor a function, if a polynomial function that is, if you want to graph it. It's convenient to write it this way. You guys remember the behavior? Behavior of this cubic function. It's a cubic function. Since the leading coefficient is positive and the degree is odd, this function rises to the right. F of x rises right and falls left. Hey, if it rises to right, it's going to do this. Probably like this. Comes down, crosses this, because whenever the factor has a power that's odd, it crosses. All of this factor, this 3 came from this factor. And this factor has a power of 1. So we say the multiplicity. This is the multiplicity. Whenever the multiplicity is odd, the function crosses. It crosses at the 0. If the multiplicity is even, the function touches the 0. It doesn't cross. It touches. So it's going to cross there. We can check by plugging in 2 into the function, okay? You can plug in 2. I'll let you guys do that, okay? But it's going to come down, and then it's going to come back up. And it's going to cross again. It's going to cross. Why is it going to cross? Well, it's going to cross because this 1 comes from this factor. And its multiplicity is odd. Look, 1. It crosses. Yes, it does. It crosses. Okay? Then it's going to go up. And then it's going to, let me see, let's find out the y-intercept. Plug in 0. A 0 there, a 0 there, and a 0 there. 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's gonna do this. Cross at 12. And then somehow it's gonna come back down. And this is probably gonna go all the way down, okay? We can find out how far down this goes by doing this. Look, you can plug in a 1, 2. Find out what f of 2 is. And let me show you how to find out what f of 2 is. Watch this. Let's find out what f of 2 is. There's a nice way of doing it. Okay? Let's plug it in. Okay? Let's plug in what 2 is. I wonder if we can use, okay, you guys already have this. Plug in 2. 8. 8 times 2. 16. Plug in 2. 4. 4 times -4. -16. Plug in 2. 2 times -10. -20. Plus 12. Do it again. 2 there. 2 cubed is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Plug in 2 there. 2 squared is 4. 4 times -4 is -16. Plug in 2 there. 2 times -10 is -20. Plus 12. Those two cancel. And what do we get? We get -8. So at x equals 2, we get -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. Right around there, okay? This is what's happening, guys. Okay? And then this is gonna go up, and then it's gonna come back down. And it's gonna cross there. Then it's gonna go down infinitely. Look. So we just found out that being able to find the zeros using synthetic division is convenient for graphing. Okay, I'm going to stop here. This is section 4.3 and 4.4. I'm still working on 4.4, okay? It's 4.3 for sure, and 4.4, I'm going to say a few things next time. Take care.